next video on the 818. Trying to figure out this mass of hoses and tubes on the top of the engine, as well as the PCV system. And you know, there's not as much information on the internet as you'd like, I think, on this, especially if you're not running an aftermarket system. So the problem is I didn't take this engine apart. Never worked on a Subaru or EJ25 before. I don't know how it's supposed to go back together. The previous owner had it partially put back together, and everything I've looked at he's done before was really high quality work, so I'm assuming he's probably got it back together right, but I don't know for sure. So we're going to make this video and push it around a couple of places, see if we can't get some help here. So first, I guess the water system is a little easier. Obviously, on the front side here, we have water in and out to the radiator. The water pump, I'm assuming, is hidden behind this thing. But I've got a hose right here, or a pipe, I guess, with a short connector hose. This comes out very close to the AC compressor. Coming from behind the timing, goes to a little connector hose there, goes into the hard pipe, comes across here and comes up under this intake pipe and into this water tank, and then also out of this water tank, which is broken, so I've got to replace, comes over to the turbo. I'm assuming this is to water cool the turbo. So I think that's most of the water system. I guess the question I would ask people is, are these type connections okay? These, I don't know what kind of pressure this water gets under. I'm assuming about 14 pounds. 108 kPa according to that cap. So I hope these type connectors are okay. Somebody let me know if they're not. Next is much more complicated, is the venting system, the crankcase, the air. I think the simplest one starts here. The big hose on each valve cover. It comes over and then comes down, goes under these wires, and it comes right here where it tees and goes directly into the crankcase. So definitely, and then it comes back over here, comes back up and over and back down into the other valve cover on the big. So this is basically, looks like it connects each valve cover to the crankcase to balance pressure between the three, which is, I understand, important, especially in cornering. So that one I think is probably right and makes sense. It's the other branch that's confusing me. Comes off the small, right beside the big one, also off the valve cover, comes off and up and goes into this big metal tube that splits in two. One end comes back over and goes directly into the other valve cover. So that's just balancing air between the valve cover. And then the split comes over and it goes into another T. And one goes down into the PCV. One comes over here to the intake pipe, it looks like. And then of course the other end was feeding out of this. So one branch is balancing the valve covers, the other one comes in, goes to the T, and appears to go to the PCV and the intake pipe. So all that looks right based on how the hoses are pre-bent and the size of the hoses and all that. And so that all that seems to be okay. So the one thing I don't seem to have hooked up on this is what actually pulls the PCV. I'm assuming that's coming off. I would think that comes off the throttle body. I've done a lot of carbureted cars, and your PCV always hooks up to your carburetor. When I replaced my carb with a Holley Sniper, a throttle body style, it also had a port to hook up to the PCV. So I'm assuming probably this one here looks like the right size coming off the throttle body. I think that's going to go into the PCV, but I'd love some input on that. This one over here looks big enough as well. If it doesn't come off the throttle body, if it's coming directly off of the intake, then there's one down here that would be very close to the PCV, and then I've obviously got one over here that I could use as well, and I think there's even a tiny one somewhere else. It's probably not useful. There it is, real tucked up under the throttle body, real tiny, probably not big enough to run that PCV valve. So definitely looking for somebody to tell me how to hook that up. So the other things that have to get hooked up is the so if I'm looking at things that aren't hooked up, I've got this small one here, which may just need to be capped, I'm not sure. This big one here, which I think goes to the blow-off valve, not entirely positive, I'll get to that in a second. This one here definitely goes to the air-to-air. It comes into that Y and goes into the bottom of the air-to-air. And then out of the back of the air-to-air goes on to the throttle body. So if I pick that up and set it up here, it would connect this one and this one, which leaves just this big one right here not hooked up. So I've got the blow-off valve, which looks like, and it's right here on the air-to-air, which would put it in a prime position to run over to this intake pipe here and close that up. So that would close everything up except for this little vacuum hose coming off the other side of the blow-off valve, which doesn't look big enough to go into the PCV, although it's in a position that it, and the hose that's there anyway, looks too short. So I don't know where this goes. Maybe it goes over to this small vacuum nipple here. It looks like it's about the right size to do that. It's pointed the wrong direction, but maybe it just needs to be rotated. Said I did not take this apart. I haven't done anything to put it back together yet. This was all done by the previous owner. So that's mainly what I'm looking with help for. I also see that I've got looks like something controlling a vacuum lever on the turbo, and it comes off, looks like turbo inlet to turbo outlet or outlet to inlet. I'd have to wrap my brain around that for a second, but it seems to be all hooked up and complete, and I'm assuming it'll mount somewhere neatly once I get everything installed. If there's anything else I've missed, please let me know. I know that this goes to the heater core, I'm pretty sure, so when I put in my aftermarket AC unit, I will get to plumbing this. So anyway, I appreciate any feedback anybody has on the forums or directly on YouTube. You can post comments. The biggest thing is what hooks up to the PCV, and then do you see anything that is hooked up that's wrong, and some of the blow-off valve hooks up right there. So thanks guys.